welcome to episode 19 of the Rex Chapman Show with super cool, super awesome Josh Hopkins.
That's me.
Man, episode 19.
Yeah, what's that? Who's that? Who's a big 19? That's a tough one.
I don't know. I don't think I know any.
Well, I know one because I cheated, but Willis Reed.
Yeah. I don't know that I could name another 19. Willis Reed, that's the best one. So
it's got to be a football player that's a big 19, somebody.
Like Johnny Unitas like that? Somebody like that?
Somebody like that would have been a big 19, yeah.
Maybe. Sounds about right.
Where are you?
I'm in New York City. Yep. Flew up, went to the ball game in Milwaukee last night. Flew to New York today. Got to do a little something in the city tomorrow, and then flying back to Milwaukee for Game 4. I'm not going to miss that.
Living the life. What happened to your Suns in Game 3, pal?
Not very sharp. I think that first finals road game was a little bit of a shock to the system for a few of our guys. They'd never played our guys. Did you see that? Did you hear that? Our guys or my guys. The Suns. I think that they'll come back with a better effort. They'll have to in Game 4. I thought Devin settled maybe a little too often early on in the game. He played awfully hard. It was a terrific environment. Really happy for that fan base. I wore my Suns shirt in there, cheered loudly for the Suns at times, and everyone couldn't have been nicer in that building. It was very competitive, a very fun atmosphere, and it's just good to be back in a building with fans, people all around. It was fun, but Suns are going to have to come with it because Giannis is going to get better and better. His wind was really, you could tell, kind of sitting down there close, that he was really winded in the first two games, or the second game, really winded, and then. Last night he looked just fine. So if he doesn't have any lingering effects, the longer this series goes, the better he's probably going to get.
Yeah, well, we all know he's a problem.
Yes, he is. He is. And I said it last night, I think in a tweet, they're a really hard team to dislike, the Bucks. Giannis is two-time MVP and doesn't mug for the camera. Drew Holiday, has donated millions of dollars over the last year throughout the pandemic, he and his wife. Chris Middleton, he's kind of like Joe Dumars to me, in that he'll just bust your ass and be real nice about it the whole time. So they're just a fun team. I hate that they won last night, but Suns got to snap back into shape and
how
get forward.
Fun is it for you? I mean, here's two cities starving for it, haven't had it, and just ready to a coronation. Both places, it's like just fire, and you're at those games.
I know.
I mean, that's more than if it was in LA or whatnot. I mean, it's electric at these games. I mean, it's had been so much fun.
It is. And, two smaller market kind of teams, Phoenix is a decently big city, but very similar fan bases, they're just rabid basketball fans. The Phoenix Suns, obviously now they have the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals, the Coyotes, but the Suns are kind of the Valley's baby. They feel like that's their baby, the first pro team in the region. So, and the Bucks, much the same. Never won a title, or not since Kareem, years and years ago. So I'm excited for both teams, both franchises.
I'm excited for Richie, Cunningham, and Fonzie. I bet they're loving this.
Yeah. Well.
Potsy was never a big basketball fan. He never.
Ralph Mouth,
Yeah.
You were kind of Ralph Mouth. I could see that in high school, weren't you? You were Ralph.
I was kind of more Potsy because I'd also sing.
Yeah.
Potsy would sing.
I was Fonzie.
Hey.
Only because I couldn't say I'm sorry. I can't say it because I'm
Yeah. Well, also when you do that, chicks come running.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm of course Fonzie.
I digress here. I want to talk about the USA basketball team. Lost to Nigeria. What do you make of that?
I don't make much of it, really. I know it was kind of electric on the Twitterverse and social media wise over the weekend, but That's an NBA team. They got a roster full of NBA players that are play big minutes in NBA rotation. So I don't know that it's that big of a stretch. It was an exhibition game. Our guys obviously didn't fire their best shot. However, getting beat like that is embarrassing for our guys, and I would expect all of our guys to bounce back with, a more workmanlike effort come next game.
It is amazing though how quickly the world has caught up.
No doubt about
in
it.
some senses. I mean, they're not, but every team we play is going to have a lot of NBA guys on it, that aren't scared. They're not scared like they used to be.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, Josh. There's great basketball being played all over the world. Our NBA right now doesn't allow for physical defense, and in other parts of the world, in FIBA, the game's still spread more wide open, but it's officiated way differently. And you gotta, our guys are going to have to get used to being held and grabbed. We know we can do it. We just can't, our guys aren't allowed to do it in the NBA. So they're going to have to kind of catch up and get used to the more physical game. I know we can be more physical, but we're just going to have to get used to how FIBA calls the game.
I'm going to read out the everybody on the team, the players here, I love the way they do now. They don't just put all the top scorers on.
Yeah.
You learn that's no good.
Right.
They got Draymond and people that do things that a team needs. But just this roster sounds weird to me in a lot of ways. One is just because there's a passing of the guard. It's just like LeBron's not on it.
Yeah,
it's like,
on it.
But you got Bam, Adebayo, Beal.
Yep.
Oh, also why I say this, I want you to say these guys' true position.
Okay.
As I say it. Okay.
All right.
Bam.
4.
Okay. We got Bradley Beal.
2.
Okay. Devin Booker.
2.
Kevin Durant.
3.
Jeremy Grant.
4.
Drew Holiday.
2, 3.
Draymond.
4.
Zach LaVine.
1, 2, but more 2.
Dame Lillard.
1.
Kevin Love.
4. Probably 5. Chris Middleton. Chris is a 3-4, but probably for international a 3.
Jason Tatum.
2, 3, 4.
Okay. There was only one guy on there that you said is
a 1. Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's a little weird. What Dame goes, say he sprains an ankle.
Yeah.
What do they do? I mean,
well,
don't get me wrong. Yeah, they have a lot of guys that can, they're pros, but it just seems odd that they wouldn't have another pure point guard, a pure ball handler on the team.
I think that's a valid argument. I also think that, we're making too much of them getting beat by Nigeria. I think that we'll go take care of business. We got to have enough ball handlers on that team to get guys into offense and enough leaders on the team to get guys where they need to go. That team is crazy talented. And, it's like our guy, John Calipari says, you need kind of positionless players now. And that's what those guys are. I mean, yes, there was only like 1 or 2 guys that were said, he's definitely that. I think that, we've got guys with versatility. KD can play anywhere, 1 through 5, really. Draymond's not going to shoot, but he's going to get guys into position. And then Zach LaVine. I've often said I would like for Zach LaVine to play alongside a real 1, somebody that can just get him the ball. But Dame's not really that player. He's more of a scorer. But I think that team's going to be really good.
Of course they are. I mean, they're, I'm not worried about them. And I don't have the reaction because of that Nigeria game. That's what I thought the roster was a tiny bit odd before. Yeah. It just seems like I don't know. They'd have one more pure point and a pure point that really isn't a score first guy.
Yeah. With guys getting a little bit older and taking care of their bodies, guys like LeBron being out, guys like Stephen not doing it anymore. I'm happy that somebody like KD did. Guy who came off Achilles surgery So I'm appreciative that he's decided to play in this, and that's what I love about Katie. He just loves to play, just
Yeah.
likes to show up and play. Josh,
Yeah.
guess who we have today?
Who?
We have a guy you probably have cussed out a lot watching basketball over the years. We have JJ Redick.
JJ Redick. I love that guy. I'm sorry. I can't
I
cuss
know.
him out.
I love
He's
it.
been playing forever. He's just looks the same as he did his sophomore year at Duke.
Yeah,
I can't wait to talk to him.
I can't either. He's what?
Did you read anything this week for book club?
Oh, you know what? A lot of traveling. I didn't. I didn't get around to anything. Did you?
No, I didn't read anything. That's been book club. Back to JJ. So what have you? I mean, he's one of the greatest pure shooters ever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean,
Runs 18 miles a game around. I mean, he just runs people ragged.
he was supposed to. People didn't know if he was going to pan out or not. He went through a couple bumpy years in Orlando, but he's carved out a career that I'm just so happy for him. He works as hard as anybody does. He got his body in shape. Kind of reminds me of Steve Nash going through his growth as a young player. Steve at some point had to look around and be like, you know what? I better start eating right, taking better care of my body, because I got to make myself as athletic as I can be in this crazy athletic league. And JJ did that like right from the get-go. So he's put in all the work, and I'm excited to talk to this little dookie.
Yeah, well, let's get to it.
Let's go, JJ Redick. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thanks to both of you guys for having me on. Excited to hear. When I heard that Rex was getting his own podcast, I was stoked for this. So I figured at some point I'd get the invite and be able to come on the show and impart what little knowledge I have. But no, this is great, man. I'm excited about this. Thanks, guys, for having me on.
I got a million questions for you. I was going to ask, can we make this like a 4-hour? Did you got time to do that? Because no, but before we start any basketball, anything, you are an accomplished podcaster. Old Man and the Three. Before that, you had the podcast for years, right? Since the bubble.
Yeah.
Old Man and the Three's been going, and you were on that, Rex, weren't you?
He was on the previous iteration.
The previous.
Rex,
Okay.
But we were in the bubble when we recorded. We were finishing up. So, little background. I did about 40 episodes with Yahoo in 2016. I took basically a year off. I did 3 seasons with The Ringer. I ended up doing about 60 episodes with them. There was one random episode with Uninterrupted called The Chronicles of Redick. Right after I signed with Philly. But yeah, so I did 100 episodes. We started our own podcast company, 342 Productions. We launched from the bubble, and I don't even know. I think later today we're recording our 65th episode. So we're rolling, man. We're rolling, and we're not even a year into it. We're basically 11 months into it.
Well, so that being said, and we're relatively new to this, we got sort of a similar. I love your pod, by the way. We got sort of a similar setup where we got Rex and I'm his, Paul Schaefer over here. And what's your advice to us as young
advice.
podcasters? Yeah. What
so there's a couple of things. Number one, when there's 2 hosts, when there's a host and a co-host, you got to figure out that dynamic, And Tommy and I, when we first started at The Ringer, it took like 10 or 15 episodes for us to sort of figure out the dynamic. So that's the first thing. We actually, when we do the Zooms, I go into where you can do chat, and I go to Tommy Alter, and I'll send him notes. So he's gotten really good when let's say I got a basketball guy, I got DeMar DeRozan on, and we're breaking down side pick and rolls. Tommy knows he's not really going to add any value to that part of the conversation. So he's gotten really good at like, all right, these guys are deep diving on a basketball thing. I'm going to let this go. And then I'll kind of text him, hey man, it's time to pivot. You take the lead on the next topic. And we kind of go that way. The other thing I see you've got my other piece of advice, when guests give answers, it's a podcast, it's long form. So they may say something early on in their answer that you want to come back to, but then they may say two more things in their answer that you want to go back to. So being able to sort of take notes in real time and then respond organically to the answer of the question, that to me is what podcasting is. And the third piece of advice, I always have a glass of water with me. I always got a glass of water.
Okay.
That's great advice. That's
I got
great
a jug
advice.
of it. I got a jug of it. I'm doing pretty
got-
well. I mean,
I
that was
got
some great advice.
I got a little bit.
There you go. There you go.
Man, JJ, we were just talking about this before you came on. I met you in college. Do
Yes.
you remember? We talked about this on your pod, but for the listeners, tell them about our first meeting.
Yeah. So Rex was working for the Suns at the time. This was the fall of 04. And I was coming off one of the hardest years of my life. This past season was probably either number 2 or the hardest season of my life. But my sophomore year, Duke, for a lot of different reasons, basketball wise, personally, and I had gotten into unbelievable shape. And Rex came down in October. It was right before, I think, either our first or second game against Tennessee Martin, I think it was. And we came to a practice, and we went up in the stands afterwards, and we chatted for about 15 or 20 minutes. And like, it was great, but the sticking point for me was like, he's like, I know you can shoot, but can you get down and guard somebody in the post? Can you be physical with somebody in the post? And I'm like, I'm a wiry. I didn't even lift weights at this point in my life, but I'd lost literally 30 pounds. So I'm like 190, just all fucking bone and lean muscle. I'm like, I don't know, Rex. I don't know. Like, am I going to go guard LeBron in the post next year? I don't know.
Yeah, probably
I
not.
don't know. Get the matchup we want. Let's get the matchup we want.
That's
You could have
right.
then.
I
LeBron was probably in second grade.
LeBron and I are the same age, Josh. LeBron
Really?
and I are the same
I know.
age. Yeah.
That's
I'm
great.
Are you really?
I'm 6 months older than LeBron. Yeah, he's
That's amazing.
he's a December. I'm June. So I just turned 37. So Braun will be 37 in December. Yeah.
Wow. So you
That's
played him
amazing.
Rex,
Your whole life.
how long did you play till? What was your last year in the league?
2000
And how old were you?
in 2032.
32. Okay.
Yeah. I came in at 19.
Yeah.
And so, but I would have loved to play at 37, man. And you say that like 37, and I think, all right, well, Chris Paul, and there's other guys now. There were not guys our size
Right.
or smaller that were playing into their late 30s at the time.
It was
30,
Stockton.
if you signed
Stockton
Yeah.
was like the anomaly
right,
there.
John, right? I don't know how much longer are you going to play?
That's up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me these last few weeks and really probably through August is just being with my family. I think a lot of people know this, and anybody who listens to my podcast knows this, but I left the day after Thanksgiving, and I came back June 7th, and my family was in Brooklyn the entire time. They came down to New Orleans twice, and then they came for a weekend in Dallas. So basically 3 times during the season I got to see them. Obviously over All-Star break I got to see them as well. But look, my boys are 6-4. They'll be 7-5 next month. They're at that sweet spot age, man, where every day it's something new. It's fun. My little one, the littlest, he's got a personality. Like he's awesome to be around. I took him golfing the other day. He walked. We have like a 5-hole par 3 course at my club, and he walked the course with me. And I need this time to sort of clear my head from the season I just had and figure out how much longer I want to do this.
You're lucky, and you're lucky that this year, a lot of guys go through that when they're young, and young in the league, and that you're experiencing this, kind of bounced around here for a year or so. At this stage of your career, and you still love it, you still want to do it, is really a testament. Did you think you'd play this long? I mean, did you ever think about
no.
Right?
Hell no. I remember, early in my career, and I remember saying this going into my senior year. I did an interview with Hoops Hype. It was during the U21 trials. We were still in Dallas. We ended up going to Argentina. I think we got like 5th place, but they were asking me about next year, and all my buddies had pretty much left that year after our junior year. Rashad McCants, Ray Felton, Sean May, Jarrett Jack, like all the guys that were in my high school class that hadn't either come out of school early or left right away their freshman year. Everybody was gone now. And they sort of asked me about what I thought I was going to be in the NBA. And I said, look, I'd be a role player like the other 90% of the NBA, 80% of the NBA, whatever it is. Like, I don't think I'm going to be a superstar. But if you had told me 15 years ago that I'd have had the career and have over 12,000 points, I'd be top 15 all time in made threes, top 15 in 3-point percentage, I think I'm top 10 in free throw percentage. Like, I've done way more than I ever thought possible, and done it for longer too. The fact that, look, I had my best years from 30 on, which is crazy. And some of that was, hard work, and some of it was just like getting lucky and being in the right place at the right time, and signing with the Clippers when I did, signing with Philly when I did. So it's been a hell of a ride, man. And to your point earlier though about loving the game, Rex, you know this. You've been around the league and you've been around basketball long enough. Like, you don't play 15 years in the NBA unless you absolutely love it, because it's a great job, but there's some bullshit that comes with this job. There's some bullshit. So the love of the game has to outweigh the rest. And for me, it always has.
What's the bullshit that you hate the most?
Sitting in a hotel. The thought of sitting in a fucking hotel room on a game day with nothing to do I'm not disparaging a city here, so I'll name a good city. Sitting in a hotel room in Miami on a game day while my family's, 1,000 miles away. That's the part, as I've gotten older, that I've hated. When I say the bullshit, look, like, we are in a results-oriented business that we now live in a culture that is just simply hot take after hot take. People are providing hot takes that they don't even believe. They're just doing it to fill airtime. The other day, like, I love Donovan Mitchell, but Stephen A came out and said Donovan Mitchell's the greatest player in Utah Jazz franchise history. Like, Stephen A doesn't fucking believe that. He doesn't believe that. He's just saying that. Somebody's telling him to say that. Like, it's just, so that's the bullshit. It's like constant, and you can't escape it. I was off social media for 2 years while I played with Philly, and I had to get back on because of the podcast. Tommy, my co-host, convinced me to get back on. But I tell you what, I wasn't on social media. I still couldn't escape it. I still couldn't escape that part. You're constantly being scrutinized. I'd get in the car. I had a driver that would take me to and from, Philly to Brooklyn. I'd get in the car, and he's telling me stuff that the Philly, sports radio guys are talking shit about me on the radio. I'm like, why are you telling this? I don't want to know this. I don't. I'm trying to get away from this, man. Just give me 2 hours of silence here.
Man,
that has to be so difficult. Just every day, because even back in your day, Rex, I mean, back when, with Jesus and stuff, you probably, there wasn't this hot take culture. There wasn't. And now it's not just, I like, he's pretty good. It's like, I hate LeBron. Jordan's the best, or and everyone has to have an opinion, and it's got to be not medium, especially in the, there's no down the lane. It's like, I think it could be. They've got to have, especially in the media, because now they need content, because they have these shows on for hours where they debate things that are stupid to debate. But then America does it. That's what's happened in our politics. Now everybody has all this information, like, he's stupid. No, you're stupid. Everyone is. How can you possibly live your life with this culture being like that and being JJ Redick?
Well, to that point, like, some of it is clickbait, and I've even gotten, I've seen this happen a million times, and I go on a podcast. Every time I host a podcast, I run the risk of being damned by the aggregate news cycle, because someone will take something you said, they'll take it out of context, it'll get aggregated, and before you know it, you're like, holy shit, that's not even. And I'll give you an example of this. Like, I knew I was going to get backlash when I went on the podcast right after I got traded to Dallas, and I didn't speak well of David Griffin. I knew I was going to get backlash, but to see the reactions that people had, I'm like, oh fuck. I edited this down. It was 28 minutes. I edited it down to 8 because I wanted to take a lot of stuff out that I didn't think was pertinent. I kept it super simple. So I went and re-listened to it again. I'm like, man, how did we get from what I said to where we are, where people are reacting this a certain way? I mean, I was crystal clear. Like, it was, so you run the risk of that. The reaction part, I'll give you an example of this. everything now with the hot take culture, everything is so reactionary, right? NBA Twitter is so much fun. I enjoy it so much, but it's so reactionary. I think back to game 1 of the Nets Bucks series, game 1, and I'm reading my timeline as Brooklyn, Harden goes down, but they're beating the shit out of the Bucks in game 1. And it's like Bud's getting fired. Giannis made the wrong decision. Drew Holiday's not better than Bledsoe. It's like, guys, it's a 7-game series for a fucking reason. It's a 7-game and then, look, Bucks are in the finals. Bucks are in the finals, obviously some of this, that's an example of, Kyrie getting hurt. Some of this whole playoffs thing has been dictated by who's been injured. But even the Phoenix series with LA, I can't remember which game it was, but it was like, oh, Phoenix is done. I think it was after game 3. Phoenix is done. And then 80's not 100%. LeBron's really not 100%. Here we are. Suns and Bucks. Let's go. Let's do it.
Do you remember a time, JJ? Do you remember a time in your career where you saw, say, I don't know, 2011, the internet and just the vitriol? Do you remember there being a tipping point in your career where it sort of changed?
I think how we use and how we interact with these apps is constantly evolving. Like, we can all remember a time, if you were on Twitter at the start, like, Twitter was actually really fun. It was fun there for a couple years. Instagram, I still love it. I don't really post a lot. I post on my story. I don't really post a lot on my feed, but I follow, travel blogs. I follow architects. I follow artists. I follow winemakers I like. Like, I enjoy it, but that clickbait, reactionary, I mean, you guys know the accounts that feed into this cycle. Like, Instagram has become that. I think, I started using Instagram in summer of 2012. It was such a safe space, man. You just post something on your feed. Like, you're not getting trolls in your comments. You're not getting bots in your comments. Right. And so the whole thing has changed, but it's social media. But look, Rex, I'm sure you remember this too. Like, before social media, before Reddit, there were online forums. And, my dad used to read like all the ACC forums. Like, he would go on other fan bases. There was a UVA one. There was a Carolina one. I got a great story. So my dad, my best friend, one of my best friends from high school, ended up playing as far as AAA and made a 40-man roster, but never got called up. But he was an All-American for Clemson pitcher. So my sophomore year, he was a junior. It was his last year at Clemson. He came over to pitch at UNC. So me and some fellas we brought a case of beer. We didn't know you couldn't drink at the baseball game. So we pulled the beer out on a picnic table. We're just, sipping on some Natty Lights or whatever we were drinking at the time. And a official at the park came over and they're like, hey guys, we're on campus. You can't drink here. We're like, all right, no worries. Great. We go over, we sit down. My buddy strikes out 13 in 8 innings. He wins the game. We go home. I don't think anything of it. My dad calls me the next morning. He's like, hey man, did you get arrested last night? And I'm like, no, not that I remember. I mean, I'm in my dorm right now. And he's like, yeah, no, because on the UNC message board, it said you got arrested at the baseball game.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nothing. Yeah, we should talk more about college.
Josh, I want to go back a little further. Hold on, because I want to know, before we get to Duke, which we could spend hours on, when you're growing up, we've talked to some hand-eye athletes on here so far, including Steph, Steve Kerr, and I want to, when did you know, because you're obviously just God-gifted hand-eye, unbelievable athlete. You've had to work on all aspects, but that's a God-given, hand-eye. You can get better. But when did you know you're like, I'm different than everyone? When were you like, oh, look, I win at darts every time? Like,
I didn't know I was different at the time because I didn't have any memory. But my dad says when I was a kid, he just would give me hammer and nails. Like, I was 2 and the motherfucker's giving me real hammers and real nails, not like the Fisher Price stuff. He's like, no, you were great. I felt it was safe. My dad's like, he's a handyman. He's a gardener. He was a potter at the time. So he did everything with his hands. So he's like, oh, I'll let JJ do it. Whatever. He had a tile table that was inherited from his grandmother, and I smashed it to bits. So there was a period of time where he didn't let me have the hammer. But my dad says, look, I was like, in baseball, T-ball, whatever, I was the best player. Basketball, it took maybe a year or two longer. By the time I was 11 or 12, I was the best player on my team and the best player in my area. That was pre-growth spurt. And so really the 8th grade is when I was like, oh, at that time now I'm done growing or just about done growing. I'm 6'3", I weigh 150 pounds. But I could shoot the shit out of the ball and, was decently athletic enough. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna be pretty good at this sport. Like I think I can play Division I. That was sort of the first goal was, Division I. After my freshman year of high school, when I started getting Division I offers, including Wake Forest and ACC school, the goal changed a little bit. Changed a little bit. It was then like, all right, I'm gonna try to go to Duke. I want to be a McDonald's All-American. But no, I think 8th grade for me, basketball wise, that's when I was like, whatever, I'm different than the other kids that I'm competing against.
But like you said, McDonald's All-American, you achieved that, but then you were like MVP of the game. Did you? Was there a moment in that time where you're like, wait a minute, I'm better than you? I'm here at the McDonald's. I'm the MVP. Like, were you like, holy shit, I'm better than I think maybe?
Yeah, it's weird because the mindset was so different back then than what. So my NBA draft class was the first draft class where high school kids couldn't come out, and I had grown up a Duke fan. And so my mindset was like, I'm going to go to Duke for 4 years. I'm going to try to win as many national championships as possible. And I want to be the all-time leading scorer. Like that was my mindset. The thought of like leaving early or even going out of high school, like I think most kids, if they had been MVP of the McDonald's game, they would have been like, oh, I'd be in the league in a year, or I'll be in the league in 2 months, whatever. Amari, of course, entered the draft right away. Carmelo from that game, took a year of college and then left. But no, it was just mindset. Like I remember those practices, even more so than the games. We did a week of practices. I think it was at Basketball City, but we did a week of practices in New York, and there were pro scouts everywhere. And I tore my plantar fascia in the state semifinals and played in the state finals. So I really hadn't played basketball in like 2 weeks leading up to that week. And I was like a little nervous, like, am I even going to be good? And then like I played great in the practices, and that gave me even more, confidence than the game. Because the game is like, who knows how much you're going to play? Is Carmelo gonna hijack the situation and shoot every shot like he did in the Capital Classic a week later? Just so you know, I've given Melo shit about this. He came on my pod and I told him about this. He claims it's because he was home because the game was in DC and he's close to he's
a little sense.
Motherfucker shot like 28 times.
Hilarious.
But to summarize what I'm trying to say, like the goal line keeps changing.
Yeah, because you keep achieving every goal.
Well, but again, I think it's just that growth mentality, and I think a lot of high achievers in any field, they have that. I think it's good to set goals. I don't necessarily set basketball goals anymore. I think it's more just about the diligence and the day-to-day maintenance. And all right, we're trying to get a little bit better each day, and if we do that, it'll sort of take care of itself. But I think high achievers, what they do is they set a goal, they achieve it, and they don't feel like they've arrived. They don't feel like they've made it. They feel like, oh, there's something else I need to do. I can be a little bit better. I can improve on the margins. And I feel like I've done that as best I could. And obviously, Rex was way more athletic than me, but within my own sort of athletic limitations, I think I've achieved more than I ever thought possible.
I'm with you. At what point did was it in the NBA or was it in college where you kind of looked around and went, all right, I got to get my body right, and I've got to be as athletic as I can
Yeah.
be. Was there a conscious time that you remember?
Sure. There were two times. So the first time was after my sophomore year, which I kind of alluded to earlier. But I basically, the second semester of my sophomore season, I was an unofficial frat guy, more than a Duke basketball player, and I regret that. And it was a big learning experience. I hit rock bottom in May. Coach brought me into his office. Coach Collins, Coach K, Wojo. They brought me into coach's office, and they said, "Look, you can keep, sort of living the way you're living, and we're not going to give you as much responsibility. You're not going to be in a leadership role. Your playing time is going to be up and down, or you can sort of commit to this, and we'll see what can happen." And I remember specifically Coach Collins saying to me, he goes, "The sad thing is, we'll never know how good you could be. The sad thing is we'll never know how good you can be." And that stung a little bit. It also stung because Coach said we didn't win a championship this year because you weren't worthy to be a champion. And I was like, fuck, man, this guy really knows how to push my buttons.
Yeah,
this guy really
heavy.
knows how to push my buttons. So that summer,
We didn't win because you're a dick. Whoa,
basically. So yeah, I mean, like, people ask me, did Coach K ever yell at you? I'm like, in 4 years, he yelled at me one time. It was my freshman year, and he called me the P word, and I was definitely playing soft. We were playing Georgetown at home. I definitely was playing soft, and I went out and I hooped in the second half, and we won. And I don't think he ever yelled at me again. He just knew how to drop a little seed, and I'd be like, that hurts deep. That hurts deep. So anyways, that summer, I had a few requirements. Basically, I had an hour schedule. I still have the sheet of paper with my entire schedule. I had a wake up time. I had to check in with Coach Collins in the morning. I had class, study hall. I had running, lifting, basketball workouts. I had bedtime at 9 p.m. lights out. And I just did that the whole summer. Cycle. I walked around campus with a jug of water. I went from, at my heaviest, I wasn't this heavy during the season, but I ballooned to 225.
Wow.
And I started the season at 192. So what is that, 33 pounds? Yeah, 33 pounds in the course of that summer. And that's when I got into the cardio part. Was like, okay, this is how I got to play. I got to be in better shape than everyone. I got to be able to run faster, harder, longer than everybody else in the court. So that was that part. After my second year in the NBA, my first year with Stan, I didn't play at all. And about halfway through the year, I was like, we're going to be a 50-win team. Maybe it's me. I'm not going to play the victim card here. So I went to our strength coach. I was like, I got to start lifting. I need to get stronger. I need to reshape my body. Not necessarily the running part, because I had that. It was more just about getting stronger, adding muscle. And so I went back to Duke that summer. I did a whole, basically that sophomore year all over again, but now with really intensive weight training, and, came back in unbelievable shape. And then that was just the rest of my career. From that second year on, like, I've just done the same thing. It's been the same routine. You tweak it here and there. We get smarter. The science improves. You figure out, what's eccentric loading versus concentric loading. And you what do I need to work on? What's going to make me more explosive? And then you build out a program and you do it. But in terms of the work, the output's just constant. And again, like, I don't think Rex's generation of players had that knowledge. Like, these resources were not available to them. And it's allowed guys like me, I'm not to their level, but, Braun being in year 18, doing what he's doing, CP in year 16, doing what he's doing. Like, this is unheard of. The consistency that these guys have to play at all NBA levels in their mid to late 30s is crazy. And a lot of it is the training and the science and the health and wellness, CP changing his diet and reshaping how he trains 2 years ago was huge.
Did you?
You must be so disciplined. You must be crazy disciplined, and you must have a routine that is very important to you, because we've never seen you fat off season. You come in and you couldn't play this long. You look the same. You look every year. You don't look like you've changed. Do you have an off season and in season just insane? Just you do every day routine?
Yeah. I have my routines have routines. Every time. So Todd Wright, who's now with the Clippers, he's like their head of athletic performance. He was the strength coach in Philly with me and an assistant coach. And he started at Clemson with Rick Barnes. He went to UT. So when I was living in Austin, I had met Todd. This was 2005 when we played them in Meadowlands, and it was number 1 versus number 2. So I met Todd then, and we would run into each other here and there. And then when I moved to Austin, I was like, Toddy, can you set me up with like, training? Can I train with you? He's like, I can't do it right now, but my business partner can. It's the same concept, same program, whatever. So I started training with this guy, Chris Braden. So Chris kind of added in some things, and then I got to Philly, and now I'm like, this is year 12 now. So like, Toddy's like, can I add a few things to your routine? Your pregame stuff, your post-practice stuff. I'm like, Toddy, here's the deal, man. You can add some things, but I'm not taking anything out. Like, that's the problem. So that when I say my routines have routines, like it's just like
crazy.
Like I got this pregame routine to get my body. So I go 90 minutes on the clock. I'm in the training room till about 70 minutes on the clock. Then I got about a 5-minute break. What do I need to do? Do I need to text my wife? Is there a game on that I want to watch 5 minutes of? Whatever. Do I need to snack? Got 5-minute break. 65 on the clock. I'm in the weight room. I got about like a 15-minute routine in there, right? But even that, like I'm doing some of the same repetitive exercises is because I like one exercise, and then a strength coach somewhere along the line has been like, you should do this. And I'm like, they're for the same thing, but I'm not taking anything out. I'm just adding on, whatever. So then at about 50 on the clock, I go out, I got a little dribbling routine. It takes like a minute and a half. And then I shoot my practice shots, my form shooting. And that takes literally as long as my shooting routine, because in the morning, I've already done my shooting routine for my game day shooting after shoot around. And if we don't have shoot around, I still go in and do it. And that's where I get the bulk of my game day shooting. My pre-game routine is like, it takes 6 minutes, 6 minutes on the court, and then I'm ready to go. Rex, were you like this at all? Like there was maybe a specific shot like you had to make, like in warmups, like I got to make my one-legged off my left foot fall away, whatever it may be. Like you got to do this, right?
Yes.
And if you missed it, what would happen?
Yeah, you
gotta
do it. Then mess you up completely.
Yeah.
Did you drive do you drive the same way to the arena every day? Same if you play well.
Yeah, I mean, look, this year was so different. No, this year was so different though. It was, and my buddy who works for the Spurs, we've known each other a long time. He worked with us in Orlando, but like the whole season he was like, man, he's like, I feel so bad for you because like I know how our guys are. Like this season was a foreign environment. It was impossible to stick to routine because of all the protocols.
Oh yeah.
It was just really hard, and because of some of the protocols, like I would not even be able to get all my stuff in, but I would have been at the gym for 6 hours. And I'm like, I just need to go the fuck home and go to sleep at this point. Like it's just, there was the testing. Oh, you got to wait 30 minutes here. Oh, it came back inconclusive. You got to wait another, so there was all these days where your shit gets fucked up. And yeah, it threw me for a loop. My first game with the Pelicans, we were at Toronto. This was my first year there. We were at Toronto, in Toronto. And, Jamel McMillan, who's Nate's son, Jamel like fucked up the timesheet for the shooting.
Oh.
And it was the day they were getting their rings. So my pregame shit's already messed up because we gotta like go out and then come back in for their ring ceremony. And then Griff wanted us out on the court for the ring ceremony. So I'm like, all right, whatever, just breathe. I gotta get this done. So I'm in the training room and he comes in and he's like, yo, why aren't you on the court? And I'm like, no, I go on the court at 45. And he's like, no, I got you down at whatever time it was, 82. And I'm like, I lost and I love Jamel. He's my guy, but I fucking lost my mind on him. I felt so bad. Obviously I apologized profusely after the game, but like, it's like, I always we talk about control, right? If you have any sort of OCD, like Ray Allen has talked about this a bunch, but like your routine is the one thing you can control. So whether I go 1 for 10, or I go 9 for 10. The next day, I'm doing the same exact thing. Guys in your day, did anybody ever go out on the court and shoot after games if they didn't shoot well?
Hell no.
No, hell no.
No.
It's the weirdest thing to me.
Yeah.
Dude, you're a head case if I'm sorry, you're a head case if you're doing that. Just go the next day and do what you're supposed to do, because there's going to be time in the morning. Clear your head. It's just stick to the routine. The routine is what you can control.
Well, this compulsiveness, that was it learned or was it innate? Did you have things as a child, or as you learn? Obviously, your routine wasn't there, but were you like this as a kid? Were you born with it?
Yes, and it bleeds into other areas of my life. Some positive, some negative. My mom used to come in my room. I was always very organized as a kid. And so I had my toys organized. I would organize my shoes in the closet. I would line them up. If you go upstairs to my closet right now, everything's in order of type by color, going from light to darkness. It's how I am. And in terms of the sports side of it, like, this is why I fell in love with sports. Because I could go in the back. I was homeschooled through fifth grade, and then I did fifth grade public school because I was so young. But I was homeschooled, so I would do my work in the morning, and then I could go outside by myself. I could be alone, and I could shoot a basketball in a hoop. I could do that over and over again. We had a little like garage shed, and at the bottom of it was a concrete foundation. And if you sort of walked up the hill, it was like pitching off a mound. So I would draw a square there. And I was pretty accurate, so I wasn't hitting the sideboard of the shed, but I was just drilling that concrete over and over again by myself, and it was like that just routine of just doing that over and over again, and that's ultimately, like, I think why I fell in love with those sports, and now I'm dealing with that with golf, and golf's the hardest sport, especially later in life, to pick up and learn.
Yeah,
but it's like I just enjoy, I enjoy going to the driving range or the short game area and just like chipping and putting for 45 minutes. And it's just, it's soothing. It relaxes me. I just love it. I love it.
Well, so some people, it's a gift or a curse depending on, your situation, but it sounds like it was a gift to you. Like, your hand-eye was a gift, and your athleticism, you had to work on it. But it sounds like would you have made the league if your mind didn't work like that?
No. And I would say that's true. I would say that's true for maybe not this exact way my brain works, but I would say that's true for most guys in the NBA, because there's so many guys that are super talented that maybe get drafted or maybe are highly ranked coming out of high school because of their physical gifts. But to last in the NBA, you have to have the mental side. The mental side is the more important side to me. Like, if I'm an executive of a team, like, physical traits aside, like, whatever. If I'm trying to draft in the top 3, this changes things. But if I've got the 27th pick or I've got the 32nd pick in the draft, all I care about is the guy tough, does he love basketball, and is he smart? I could give 2 fucks about anything else. I don't care. Like, give me a TJ McConnell. Give me a TJ. I've said this before. I was begging the Clippers to draft Brogdon. Now, he had some medical red flags, but we passed him up twice.
Yeah,
we passed him up twice. Then he got Rookie of the Year. So like, give me those guys. And look, to win, obviously, you need LeBron, you need an Anthony Davis, a Jimmy Butler, a Giannis. You need 1 or 2 horses for sure. But I'm betting on guys like TJ McConnell, competitive,
Agreed.
Smart, and loves basketball.
Agreed. JJ, you had one of the most amazing college careers in history, literally. You stayed 4 years. The guys that you were in the McDonald's game with, many of those guys left early. You had you said, kind of a rough sophomore year, came back, crushed it as a junior. Any thought to leaving school after your junior year at all?
There was
Okay.
like a 3-day period. So we lost in Austin to Michigan State in the Sweet 16. Coach and I had this amazing moment in the hotel afterwards, and really that year was the start of our lifelong friendship, where he wasn't just my coach anymore. He was my friend. And that went all the way back to that meeting in May. But that whole year was like, me and him were like this. And we had this amazing moment afterwards. And I went to the Wooden 2 weekends. So I went to the Final Four the next weekend for the Naismith and all that stuff. I think I won the Rupp that year. So I went and won the Rupp, was second to Naismith. And then the following weekend was the Wooden out in LA. And by this time, you know, Final Fours happened. Guys are starting to meet with agents, sign with agents, whatever you want to call it. And Sean May was out there and he was meeting with an agent. And I happened to have lunch with the agent and him. And then I left lunch and I kind of went to my dad and I was like, what am I doing? Like, should I be talking to people? Should I be thinking about this? Arn, who I ended up signing with a year later, was like at the event, but never reached out to me to like, hey, do you want to talk? Like, people just stayed away from me. It was great. I mean, I had never had to deal with shit in college. Never had to deal with any agents. Never had to deal with any hangers on. Like, but you know, if had Arn maybe communicated through a back channel, like I want to meet with JJ, I want to talk to JJ, like there's a chance I would have considered. The one thing is, and Sheldon is a big reason he came back too, is we hadn't won. So had I not been a knucklehead my sophomore year and we had won when we should have, that was the best team I played on at Duke. We had 6 NBA guys. Yeah, exactly. Asshole. But had we won that sophomore year, then I probably would have given it more thought than those maybe 2-3 days that I did. I also got, well, not, that's too much, but I also got, I got tagged. I got tagged the following week to be in the secret society at Duke. So then I was like, maybe I will go back for my senior year.
How secret? How secret was it? Do tell.
No, there's nothing.
Show us the handshake.
He can't do it.
I can't do it. I can't.
He can't do it.
Well,
Every now and then, though, I'll be at a game, and we have like a little thing we say that we kind of acknowledge each other's existence when we're out in the public. A little phrase, and I'll look over in the stands, and then somebody will give me the signal. You know, they'll give me the signal, and I'm like, oh.
That's awesome.
I like some Illuminati shit. So
awesome. I know.
Yeah. No wonder you don't age.
No wonder everyone hates Duke.
There's a picture of him from the 1920s, you know, in a jean dancing the jig. Speaking of Duke, I don't want to stay on it too long, but the Duke villain, the Duke, usually a white guy villain, everybody decides to hate. I think it's everybody wine and cheese Duke place and, you know, given so much. But you handled it. You seemed to love it. You were a bit of a showman with it. It seemed to power you. And I want to hear about that. And I want to know, do you know any of them that happened to that it really bothered them? Like they didn't handle it well, but they were the chosen villain.
I would say for all of us, to some extent, being the villain at Duke required some therapy in some way. Mm-hmm. For me, I can speak to my own experience. Like I had to start seeing someone during my freshman year. And you know, you're 18. My dream is to play at Duke, right? I go to my first road game at Clemson, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is not what I signed up for. Not what I signed up for. You know, I'm 18. I have you know, shoulder acting, and we go to UVA, and they've got these makeshift Duke 4 jerseys and painted red dots all over their shoulders. You know? And I'm like, I'm 18. I'm sensitive. I'm you know, whatever. So I think my choice was, and I don't know if it happened right at Clemson, but at some point my freshman year, my choice was just like they're going to come at me regardless. I'm just going to embrace it, and I did, and I embraced it. And some of it was playing a role, and you know, when I watch Trae Young, I feel like he does that a little bit. Like,
yes,
but it's you're on stage, you're performing, and it's part of the performance art, right? Is just playing this role of the villain and the troll, and yeah, I enjoyed it. The one incident my sophomore year. We were playing at Maryland in a nationally televised ESPN game, and a little backstory. You know, the crowd at the end of the game, I was shooting free throws. I had a really good game, but I was shooting free throws, and the whole crowd was chanting, "Fuck you, JJ! Fuck you, JJ! Fuck you, JJ!" Right? And the mics on ESPN caught it, and then there was like this whole thing with like the Attorney General of Maryland and Gary Williams having to make all these statements. The backstory that was, I can't remember his name, but the Ravens owner. Would always come to the Duke Maryland games, and he was sitting courtside, and he would yap. He was just a yapper, you know. And so I started yapping back at him in the first half. And, if you watch some of that game, like my body language, you're kind of like, I hate that JJ guy. Like that guy's a douche. You know what I mean? So I definitely brought this on myself even more than I could. If I had just like, went into submission and just kept my mouth shut, I think eventually like it would have like reached like a status quo. This is the level of animosity I have to deal with. But I just kind of, I just threw gasoline on the fire, and
it was great.
Made it worse. It made it worse.
Do you remember anything someone saying to you? Because it's all usually cliche, dumb shit like "fuck you." Do you remember someone saying anything and you being like, "Oh, that's pretty good"? You remember one of those?
Yeah. A lot of it wasn't that clever. I wish it was. A lot of it was like, you suck. You're something about Coach K and me's relationship. People started, a lot. I've talked about this a lot. But people started bringing my mom and my sister. I have 3 sisters. They started. I was doing this with your sister last night. I just be like, all right, dude, you're a child. But the one that I always talk about that I loved, same game at Maryland. There were two sort of things that stick out. So there was a sign, and by the way, that off season, I had been in a dorm room and the cops had come and people had been smoking. I'm going to plead the fifth on this one, but so there was like references to the bongs or whatever on these signs, and I was like, oh, okay, I kind of expected that. And then I saw one sign and it said JJ drinks his own pee, and I thought that was pretty clever. I like
the random.
I was like, yeah. I'm like, and then there was this group of students who were sitting right behind where I think Dick Vitale and Mike Patrick were doing the game. I can't remember for certain, but I think they were doing the game. So there's a group of students sitting behind them right at center court. They were front row of the student section. And I noticed during warm-ups, I was like, yo, those guys, they're in the Maryland student section, but they got my picture. My picture's on the shirt. So I kind of walked over and I was kind of like checking out what the shirt said. And the shirt said, when I grow up, I want to name my kid JJ Redick. But then on the back, it said, and beat him every day.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, all right. That's some thought and effort.
Yeah, it did. It did.
I mean,
had a whole shirt printed up for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good Lord.
So were there any guys that it really bothered worse, the most at Duke? It hindered their game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make excuses for some of his actions, but I know, Grayson, from sophomore year on, like that was a hard thing to go through for him. And you saw it kind of culminate with I can't remember which game it was. I think it was at Greensboro Coliseum or whatever. I think they were playing Elon or something, and he was at the bench, and you just see the emotion, the frustration of it just kind of come out. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think you have to have thick skin, but you have to have an avenue to sort of talk about that and talk through it, because it just allows you to bottle it up, right? It's too much. And again, I go back to being an 18 or 19-year-old kid. Like, I grew up in the woods. I didn't have neighbors, right? I played big games, but like I'm a small town kid. And I was not prepared for the fishbowl. And at the time, it felt like a bigger deal than it probably is. But at the time, Duke basketball felt like the biggest thing in the world to me, because it was all I'd ever known. And so it felt so big and so important. And between the pressure of playing at Duke and then having to deal with all that stuff, I wasn't perfect. I made some mistakes, and I had to sort of grow through that.
Interesting.
JJ, Suns Bucks. Who you got? Suns Bucks finals. And how weird is this? And how great is it?
It's so great. It's so great. I said this the other day, but we heard for like 5 years everybody complaining about the lack of parity in the NBA when it was Warriors versus Cleveland, and everybody's complaining. And then this year we get a lot of parity and everybody's complaining, we don't have enough superstars. Where's the big markets? It's just like people aren't happy. The playoffs have been phenomenal. Even without some star players missing time, the playoffs have been phenomenal. To talk about this series, I think it's like, how healthy is Giannis, right? I think that's the biggest sort of what if. I said this, I want to say in the first round, but I believe this. Like, I think Phoenix has the most complete team in the NBA. And I played for Monty. So Monty was our lead assistant my second year in Philly. And I know Chris, and I played with Chris for 4 years. The level of attention to detail and just drilling and going over every situation, like that play where Jay Crowder threw it into DeAndre Ayton with point whatever on the clock, 0.8, 0.9, whatever it ended up being. I can guarantee you Monty Williams has practiced that dozens of times, and they maybe only ran it once. That's the attention to detail you get from Monty, and obviously Chris is the same way. And you've seen the impact that's had on a guy like DeAndre Ayton. D-Book is just he's like Kobe mini Kobe. You know, he's just his own superstar in his own way. But I think the impact he's had on DeAndre has been huge. Mikal Bridges, it's been huge. So I campaign, obviously. I like Phoenix in the series, but it's hard for me, Rex, because CP and Drew are two of my best friends, you know, and they're going against each other. And I want so badly for both of them to win a championship. So it's I can't say I'm going to root for one team or the other, but I will say from the jump, I thought Phoenix has the most complete team.
So who do you like more, though? You've got to choose between those two. Who's your best friend? No,
Who's
you got to say it now. 3, 2,
Who do you like
1,
better?
say it.
Which one?
3, 2, 1, say it.
Say it.
Let me check my most recent missed calls and calls.
Right.
And I'll tell you who maybe is closer.
You know, one thing I think's been so interesting about your entire career, I mean, 2006, when you came in, I mean, Jason Kidd was in the league, Yao Ming, some of these guys. And now you've seen him, you know, Kidd as coach and executives. Elton Brand was in the league. And you kind of, instead of watching it, you played the evolution of the game. You saw the full evolution go from, you know, basketball the way we knew it to 4 out and 1 in, and how it all changed, but the pick and roll and whatnot. Was there a moment where you're like, holy shit, everything's different, or it was obviously a little gradual?
I think it was more gradual than sudden. So I'll point to 3 things, but I want to tell one story real quick. So my first training camp was in, I think, Jacksonville. We were in Ponte Vedra with the Orlando Magic at the University of North Florida. And I think it was our first practice. It was definitely one of the first 2 days. We're running that stupid 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drill to start practice. So you go 3-on-2, whoever shoots the ball gets back as the defenders. Those 2 defenders come down 2-on-1, whatever. So I'm one of the 2 defenders. You know, shot goes up, we get the ball, we're going down 2-on-1. And Carlos Arroyo just passed ahead to me, and I ran to the 3-point line because I'd seen Peja Stojakovic do it, and this is how I played at Duke. I ran to the 3-point line, caught the ball, went up, shot it, swoosh, whatever. Brian Hill stops practice. What the fuck? Don't ever fucking take that shot. You know, we're running this for layups. We want layups. And now if you watch the NBA, every guy just runs to the 3-point line. It's a 4-on-1. I mean, people used to make fun of me when I was at Duke, and we'd have a 4-on-1, 5-on-1, and I'd have the ball and I'd dribble up and shoot a 3. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't know what the percentages are, but like if the right guy's taking the shot, I'm good with it. Yeah. The 3 gradual things. I think Phoenix, you know, the D'Antoni's Suns team, which it's crazy, but if we look at their pace and the amount of threes they took, it'd be like last in the league right now.
Yeah.
I think the Magic thing that we had, which was a pure accident because Tony Battie had hurt his shoulder. So we started Richard at the 4 because Turk was too lazy to play the 4. That's actually true, and I
know it is.
So that was like one thing, and we had some success with that. Oh, Dwight, we have a monster, you know, rim runner going to the rim hard. We got 4 shooters outside, so that concept kind of like was ingrained from those 2 teams. And then the last thing I think is just the combination of Steph and Clay, right, and the success the Warriors have had, and then what Daryl Morey did in Houston, which was building an entire infrastructure system all the way down to the G League of we're going to shoot as many threes as possible. And some of that, I think, you know, that's one end of the pendulum and one end of the spectrum. like we've swung back a little bit. But like if you can generate good open threes and you can generate as many rim chances as possible, that's a pretty good offensive concept. What I think we've seen in the playoffs is that when it comes time for the playoffs, what you need is one or two guys that can get to their spots in the mid-range and create offense that way. Because a lot of the stuff that works in an 82 game season to generate those layups and to generate those open threes, they just don't work in the playoffs as well. And so you need guys who can play out of the pick and roll, get to their spots. And obviously, you know, we got Chris Middleton, Drew, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. Both teams have those guys that can do that.
What about defensively? How's it changed for you? We've asked players and Rex how they would do in today's game. Obviously, Rex would be fantastic in today's game, where you're supposed to shoot, you pull the bigs from the rim, he could go around. We asked Steve Kerr about it because he was, 45% shooter. And he had an interesting answer. He was like, yeah, but I was always kind of a liability on defense, but I could kind of pick my spots and do my thing. But today, trying to guard on the pick and roll, and he was like, I'd have to switch off. What would I do with Donovan Mitchell? What am I? So defensively, how has that changed for you?
Well, I think, when I first got in the game, we were still in a lot of like ISO basketball. I would come in the game to guard Steven Jackson or Joe Johnson, and they just clear out a side, and might have to try to get a stop. Then it was more just like you guard your position. So then there was like 10 years where you just like you guard your position, and maybe game to game you make similar adjustments. But like when I was in the Clippers, I guarded my position. And then in the last few years, like a lot of things are switch heavy defenses, and so I think that's where on certain teams, like I've switched a lot. Like a couple years there in Philly, I was switching a lot, and then at my request, when I first got to New Orleans, I was kind of like, hey, like against certain matchups, I'm cool showing, guys. I'm cool showing. If they try to target me, like, I'm just going to show and get back. High hands. It's like I think I had a good run there for 6 or 7 years where like defensively I was sound. I'm never going to be a lockdown defender, but defensively I was sound. You could put me as a starter on a top 5 defense because I've done that numerous times in my career. But as you get older, like your limitations defensively, like even offensively, like I'm not creating as much separation. I'm just as skilled as I've ever been is what it comes down to, so like, as long as I can get my shot off, I'm going to make it, but you're not getting the same separation off pins, the same separations off a step back. You're just not. Like I'm 37. Like I've done it as much as best I could, but that's sort of the adjustment you make. You try to win a little bit with your mind and your skill more so than your body as you get older.
What do you want to do afterwards, JJ? You play another 3 or 4 years or 5 years or whatever. What happens? What happens then? What do you want to do then?
Whenever it is, I want to take some time off and be a dad and get down to like a 5 handicap in golf. Travel a little bit, spend some time with my wife because we haven't really, we haven't really lived together, for 4 years with me commuting back and forth. When I was playing in Philly, we had, Kai, my youngest, we had him my last year in LA. So it's been like 5 years of just like kind of chaos in the household. And so I'm kind of, whatever it is, I'm looking forward to just spending time with my family. But I don't want to commit to anything, Rex. Like, I don't want to say like, I want to coach or I want to be in the front office or I want to do TV or I want to do something outside of basketball. Like I kind of want to let that process happen organically. And one of the things I've already started doing is I've already started chatting with folks just to provide. Hey, I chatted with Kerr the other day for 45 minutes, about some post retirement stuff and what it looks like. And, I'm starting to think about those things. I have no choice. I have to,
It's good.
as we've mentioned. But no, I'm excited whenever the next step is, whenever the next, phase of my life is, I'm excited because I'm in a position where I've got I've got a great family, and I got enough interests outside of basketball that I think I'll be all right. But as you know, like that void, like you, dude.
Yeah.
When I was sitting in the playoffs watching those games this year, watching the Dallas Clippers series, I was dying. I mean,
I bet.
that's why we play. That's
Yeah.
why we play, to compete at that level in that environment. And I think some of this year was part of the frustration. I think was like playing in empty arenas. It was just it was such a novelty in the bubble, and they did a good job of kind of like making it feel like a Broadway stage. But then like you get in these empty arenas and you're kind of like, man, this is different. I don't enjoy this as much.
I don't
enjoy it.
I kept worrying about that. I mean, the bubble, I know it had some terrific aspects, but as this season wore on, I was just like, oh my God. People would ask, what do you think the players are experiencing out there? I was like, the young guys they may not affect them as much. The older guys who've been doing this a long time, that know it is entertainment, they feed off the crowd.
Yeah.
And the crowd feeds off of them. I can only imagine what a mind fuck it was for many of you guys.
It was. And even when there was crowds, for most of the series, there was nobody close to the court. Like those interactions you have with the patrons that have ponied up, to sit there, or, you run through the tunnel at the end of the game and you're high-fiving everybody by the tunnel. Like that's the feels, man. That's the feels.
Right.
That's what we enjoy doing. I love that you call it, just the performance of it. It's all part of it. Like the fans are as much a part of the game as anything else. And to not have them in it, it didn't feel like the game. It didn't feel like the game that I love, Yeah.
It's like Pat Bev, I can't stand watching him play a lot of the time, but he plays a great villain.
Yes.
And sitting courtside watching him last week, you just hate him if you're the opposing team, but he's talking to the crowd in the front row. He's talking to people. He can't do that if there's no people there. And so it detracts from his game.
It does. It's part of you're part of like a guy like him. It's like, it's part of your persona on the court. It's part of your character. It's how you get into character to go compete. Like here's the things, we all have a checklist. Here's the things I need to do to be able to play at a high level. And you're taking away one of his character traits. It's hard.
That's interesting. Even talk about Pat Beverly, because even him more than others, that's why he's in the league.
Yeah.
He doesn't come with some super skill. His skill is get up in you, make you uncomfortable. And
that's right.
That's his skill. So to take that away from him, the push in the back the other night, it's like off. But I'm like, that's what you got to get, the good and bad. You're going to get that with a guy who's plays with that emotion.
Yeah. Yep. The push aside, I actually thought he was great in that Phoenix series. And
agreed.
He didn't play a lot in our series with the Mavs. So credit to him for just like staying in shape, being ready, and then all of a sudden he comes in. I think it was game 2 where he harassed the shit out of Devin
and made shots.
And made shots. And he does all this stuff, and he's an aggravator, but he's also a 40% 3-point shooter. Like he also fills a role on the other side of the floor as well. I think he's got incredible value because of that. Guys, where are we with time on this? Because
we got two things to say.
Okay.
What's your favorite movie?
Okay.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, what is my favorite movie? Rex, you follow me on Twitter. You should know.
I know. I know what it is, but go. What's your favorite movie?
Interstellar. Interstellar is my favorite movie. It's the greatest movie ever created. I could go into all the reasons why. But I would just say this. Interstellar is I think the greatest combination of storytelling, visual effects, and a soundtrack that I've ever come across. Right. And Christopher Nolan, he's a master at making amazing movies. I think Interstellar is his best movie. And I think it's the best movie ever. Have you guys seen Tenet, by the way? His newest movie?
Yes.
Tenet. Mm-hmm. How many times did you watch it?
I only watched it once.
Okay. Because this is what
I think I watched it twice because I had a friend who hadn't seen it. I don't know what the fuck happened.
Yeah. So here's how I approach.
It's over my head.
Here's how I approach. This is just the way I operate. But so I watched it once, and then I watched it again, and then I watched some YouTube videos, and then I watched it a third and fourth time, and then I spent some time on Reddit, and then I watched it a fifth time. And then for my own personal enjoyment, I watched it sixth and seventh time once I knew what the fuck was going on. But I loved it. On my first watch, I was like, oh, it's like that first scene in all his movies where there's like the music building and there's not a lot of dialogue and there's some sort of heist, right? There's some sort of build up to some sort of action heist. And you're just waiting for it. And then they start the story. But that first scene of Tenet, like I was all in after that first scene. All right, second question. What do you guys got?
What do you got, Josh?
Okay, front row center. You got to any concert, speaker, front row center, dead or alive.
Ooh, wow. Man, I would love to be front row in Asbury Park in the early 1970s at what's the name of the place in Asbury Park, Rex? You probably know it.
I don't
like the
know.
White Pony or something.
Oh yeah. I know
Where
exactly
where Springsteen was
Yeah.
basically discovered. Yeah. I'd be front row, early Springsteen, give me 1970. I think the Greetings from Asbury Park came out in 73. So say
What an old
1972.
soul.
Yeah,
Seriously?
I'm going to be there. I would also say when I think about my own life and I was a history major at Duke, and you try to think about what moments from my lifetime are super important in the grand scheme of history. And I would love to have been in Grant Park in 2008 when Obama was elected. That's a moment in my lifetime that I was in season, whatever we were playing, but that's a moment that for sure I'd like to revisit.
Last question. Sorry. One three-pointer
You can't.
to save the world. One three. There's a comet coming, and if he makes it, we're all okay. If he misses, nothing. Is it you?
No, it's not me. I'm actually so the natural choice would be Steph Curry, but I'm gonna say Klay Thompson, because I'll tell you why. Comet's coming. All of humanity rests on you. Any normal human being would feel some sort of pressure. Clay is just so stoned. He's just whatever, I'm just going to shoot the ball. No, he doesn't see anything coming. Any outside noise. Don't care. He'll show up in flip-flops. He'll come off his boat out of the San Francisco Bay, show up in flip-flops, stroke a three, and then walk away. That's just
Great answer.
That's Clay.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, JJ. Thanks, buddy.
right.
I'll be talking to you. We got to do it again.
Let's do it again. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.
See you. Well, that's JJ, Josh. What do you think, bud?
It's fantastic.
Right?
Guy, he's a great communicator. He needs to have his own podcast, right?
He really does. Somebody should talk to him.
He's
about
got
that.
a big future in media if he wants.
Oh, well, I was just sitting. The more I talked to him, I did his pod a couple of months ago, or maybe 6 months ago. The more I talk to him, the worse I feel about myself.
It
he
seems to
said
be a
he's
theme on this.
with us,
Uh-huh.
a history major who took his academics very seriously,
Mhm.
not something I did.
Well, he was
He's
4
so-
years. You were out.
Yeah, he's already doing stuff to prepare for when he finishes playing. Something it never occurred to
Right.
me. And I'm envious too. He got to stay. He stayed in school 4 years. I mean, and loved it. Loved the college
And a
experience.
minor in cultural anthropology.
Come on, man. I mean,
I don't even know what
guy
that
is-
means.
he's going to be a bigger star, maybe, post playing than he has been playing, and that's saying something.
And now
He's
he
pretty damn
owns
good.
his podcast and
Yeah.
his own podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about JJ.
No, I'm not either. And you can kind of tell, man, he is torn between Drew Holiday and Chris Paul, two of his buddies.
Yeah.
Awesome. What an interesting dude. And Josh, next week, episode 20. We should do this again. Want to?
I'd love
Let's do it next week on the Rex Chapman Show with Super Josh Hopkins, powered by basketballnews.com. We'll see you then.